Welcome to episode 596 of AI Brief. So today, we are pulling the most critical signals out of all the noise in the tech landscape right now. We've got a lot of source material to get through.
We really do.
We're going to cover Anthropic's uh, highly polarizing new invisible watermarks, then the rollout of Grok Bot's autonomous AI teammates, and finally, this massive $1.1 billion raise for a 2-month-old personal AI startup called River AI.
Yeah, and looking at all these top stories today, they really revolve around this one central tension right now,
Right.
which is just control. Like specifically, who has the control? How much of it is being handed back to you, the user, versus, being kept heavily guarded by the major labs?
It's a huge tug of war. And let's start unpacking that tension with our first big update directly from Anthropic.
Yeah, this one is big.
They just published a support page detailing a global rollout of invisible watermarks. And these marks are going to be embedded into text, code, and file outputs from the new Claude models.
Any model post-August 2nd, right?
Exactly. Older models are getting retrofitted. So Anthropic is framing this as, putting the EU AI Act's transparency rules into practice.
Which makes sense on paper.
It does, but the actual mechanics of it are sweeping. For visual files, they're using the C2PA standard, which is pretty normal. But where it gets really complex and honestly a bit unnerving for some users is the text and code.
Yeah, because it persists, right.
Right. The watermark is designed to survive even if you copy and paste that text entirely outside of their platform. It basically indicates that the content was processed by Claude.
And that phrasing is super deliberate. Processed by Claude kind of acknowledges that the AI might have just, edited or formatted human-written text. It didn't necessarily write it from scratch.
Right, but I really want to pause on the mechanism here because this is what everyone is asking about. How does a text watermark survive a simple copy and paste?
It's pretty wild.
I mean, if I copy text and drop it into a plain text editor, it strips out all the hidden HTML, all the formatting. How does Anthropic actually know I used Claude?
Well, because it's not a hidden character. It's not like HTML code. The watermark is actually baked into the vocabulary itself.
Wait, into the actual words?
Yeah. So when a large language model generates a sentence, it doesn't just pick the one logical next word. It selects from this massive probability distribution of possible words.
Okay, so it has options.
Right. So what this algorithm does is it uses a cryptographic key to subtly divide the model's vocabulary into a green list and a red list.
Oh, wow.
And it gently forces the model to heavily favor synonyms from the green list.
So instead of saying utilize, it might just consistently choose deploy.
Exactly. And to a human reader, the text flows totally naturally. The meaning is entirely unchanged.
But a computer can see the pattern.
Right. If you run that text through a detection algorithm, which Anthropic says they're going to release, it looks at the math. It sees that the text overwhelmingly favors the green list in a way that is, statistically impossible for a human to do by chance.
It's essentially a typographical fingerprint.
That is a perfect way to describe it. But, this is getting a very polarized reaction.
I can imagine.
On one hand, it's great for EU AI Act compliance. Anthropic is taking the lead, and OpenAI and Google will probably have to do the exact same thing. But for a lot of users,
It feels like an overreach.
totally, when a tracking mechanism follows you into a private offline document, it changes your relationship with the tool. It's actually strengthening the argument for people to just use private open source models instead.
Where they have total control. Which, speaking of operating outside standard browser constraints, leads us to Grok Bot.
Yeah, this is a totally different paradigm.
Right, so SpaceX AI and Cuzir just rolled out this new Grok Bot beta. Instead of, a single chatbot window, it functions like an iMessage group chat.
But your contacts are all AI teammates.
Exactly. And the craziest part is each of these bots has its own dedicated cloud computer. They work autonomously 24/7. They use everyday apps. They log into portals.
It's basically a virtual assistant with a ghost keyboard.
Right. And they actually learn from your user workflows over time. They can even generate specialized subagents on the fly to handle very specific tasks within the thread.
And you can see why the group chat is rapidly becoming the dominant form factor for these agents.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we've seen it with OpenClaw, Hermes, Jack Dorsey's Buzz. The standard text box is actually kind of limiting. It's hard to write one massive perfect prompt.
Just a lot of cognitive load.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we intuitively know how to tag people in a group chat. Grokbot is just bringing that orchestration to the masses on mobile and desktop.
So on one side, we have major labs pushing mandatory watermarks and Grok Bot building cloud agents. But our third story is the exact opposite of all that.
The River AI race.
Yeah, so former XAI co-founder Igor Babushkin just raised $1.1 billion for River AI.
Which is huge.
It's massive. And it's a 2-month-old startup focused entirely on open source personal AI that runs on private hardware. They have a live API that supposedly cuts training open weight models down to just minutes.
Right, so businesses can actually own their models.
But I have to push back on this. $1 billion valuation for a company that's 8 weeks old and just has an API. I mean, how is the market justifying that kind of money?
I know it sounds like a bubble. But the sources show it comes down to his elite pedigree. Babushkin spent critical years at OpenAI, Tesla, Google, and XAI.
Okay, so they're betting on the architect.
Right, but it's also the exact mission of the company. His explicit goal is to prevent major AI companies from ruling the world.
Which ties perfectly back to our first story.
Exactly. With forced watermarks and strict usage policies, River's promise of absolute user privacy is incredibly appealing to investors right now.
Okay, but what about the technical claim? Training a model in minutes, that takes months and tens of thousands of GPUs.
Well, it's the difference between base training and fine-tuning. They aren't building a model from scratch.
Oh, got it.
They take a massive open-weight model and just update a tiny fraction of the parameters with the company's private data. By streamlining that into an API, you get a customized model in minutes for pennies.
Wow. Okay, that makes more sense. And that massive momentum shift toward open-weight, locally run models is really spilling over into the rest of our updates today.
Let's take a look at everything else happening in AI. Walk us through the rest of the sources.
Sure, so first up is Unsloth Desktop. This is a new app that lets you run and train open-weight LLMs locally on macOS, Windows, and Linux.
Without relying on the cloud at all.
Exactly. And it supports easy switching between text, image, or video models. So you can run things like Meta's Muse Glimmer, DeepSeek V4, or Kimi K3 right on your own machine.
That is super practical.
Yeah. And then over at OpenAI, we're tracking a string of executive departures. Chloe Bacalar from FX departed after less than a year.
This follows July exits of Johannes Heideck in safety and futurist Joshua Akiem. And longtime COO Brad Lightcap is also leaving to, quote, start something new. He mentioned there are important new things the world needs to get right in this next phase of AI.
It definitely feels like a clear phase shift over there.
Meanwhile, Anthropic is reportedly pivoting its strategy to prioritize healthcare and biology use cases.
Which is probably to mitigate some of the negative public sentiment around AI right now, right?
Yeah, it's a very calculated focus on undeniably beneficial sectors. Moving on to video generation, LTX just released LTX 2.5.
I saw this. It's an open-weights world model, right?
It is. In an internal speed and quality test, it's actually beating Google's Gemini OmniFlash.
That is a massive milestone for open source.
Totally. And finally, NVIDIA rolled out a fast small model called Nemotron 3.5 Lightning. And they teased that the upcoming Nemotron 4 is going to rival the world's absolute best open source AI models.
You know, it's incredible how all these smaller updates really highlight that shift toward locally run AI. And speaking of practical application, let's jump into today's trending AI tools.
Let's do it.
We have 7 tools trending today, and I want to run through a rapid-fire, real-world use case for each one. First is Grok Bot, which we just talked about.
Right. The cloud computer agents?
The best use case here is delegating overnight data entry and web research. You give it to the autonomous agent, and because it has its own desktop, it's completely finished before you even open your laptop in the morning.
Which is amazing. And for LTX 2.5, if you're running an ad campaign, you can generate high-quality, real-time avatars and B-roll directly on your own hardware.
Right, no expensive cloud fees. Third is Nemotron 3.5 Lightning. This one is perfect for powering instant automated agentic tasks on smaller local devices. You don't have to wait on cloud processing latency.
It's basically lag-free.
Exactly. Fourth is the ChatGPT Desktop app for Linux. The use case is allowing developers to natively integrate ChatGPT and Codex into their Linux workflow without ever switching tabs.
That keeps you right in the flow state.
Fifth is Cuzir. This automatically aggregates and analyzes all your ad campaign performance across multiple platforms, so you instantly find out what's actually driving ROI.
Cutting through the noise.
Right. Sixth is Looops. If you have a last-minute client pitch, Looops generates a complete professional portfolio or business website in seconds.
And seventh is Hiddle. This one lets you create and edit really complex motion graphic videos for social media just by typing chat commands. You don't need to learn a complicated timeline editor.
You just tell it what to do in plain English.
Yeah, and the big practical takeaway when you look at all these tools together is that assembling a tech stack like this allows a solo worker to operate with the output speed and quality of a full creative agency.
It's completely democratizing scale. One person can do the work of 10.
Exactly.
Well, that wraps up episode 596. Thank you so much for tuning in to AI Brief and exploring this deep dive with us. We really encourage you to follow the show and share it with your network.
It's been great. Thank you all for listening, and keep building.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. As you start using these autonomous systems like Grok Bot, think about this. If your AI agent is running in the cloud while you sleep, and it inadvertently scrapes copyrighted material or commits a cyber violation, who is legally liable? The platform, the bot,
Yeah.
or you? Something to chew on. See